What is going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing well. Today, we're finally going to get a look at the Dead Space Remake PC port. Taking a look at the PC version here. Obviously, this game's available now from EA Motive Studios, who is sort of a melting pot of former dead Ubisoft and Electronic Arts studios. A lot of people formerly from Ubisoft Montreal and team members from BioWare have all sort of converged into EA Motive Studios and previously worked on Star Wars Battlefront 2 as well as Star Wars Squadrons. But this is the remake for Dead Space, one of my favorite franchises of all time. So we're going to jump into the graphics options, talk about the PC performance, which is pretty darn solid, honestly. Nice to finally get a decent PC port. Not perfect by any means, but we'll get into it. But first, today's video is brought to you by SuperCDK.com, where you could save money on games for all of your favorite platforms, as well as software like Windows 10 Pro licenses for just $22, and then you can unlock the prestigious Dark Mode for Windows 10, which I honestly could not live without. It is blinding without the dark mode. You guys need it in your life. And now you can also save an additional 25% off at checkout by clicking Buy Now on any software products. Over there, just go ahead and add it into your cart and put in my code JP25 at checkout and apply, and that'll bring our price from $22.44 all the way down to $16.83, a savings of over $5. And I'll walk you through how to get your key and install it on Windows 10. Go ahead and click Submit Order and complete your checkout from there. For me, that's going to be with PayPal, and then click on Pay Now. After completing the checkout, it'll bring you to your purchased order page, and it will update in a matter of seconds, or just go ahead and hit F5. Go ahead and do that one time. It came through literally immediately. I got the payment email that it had gone through and the delivery of the product exactly at the same time. Once you're done with that, go ahead and click on View Keys and Codes, and we'll get our code right here that we can go ahead and copy and paste in on Windows 10 by hitting the Start button and type in the word Activate. When you see that activation settings or see if Windows is activated, go ahead and click on that, and it'll bring up this right here, and click on Change Your Product Key or Unlock Windows 10. As I already have Windows 10, I obviously don't need to put in a new key, but just paste it in and then go ahead and click Next, and you are all done and set. For more information on SuperCDK.com as well as the coupon code, be sure to check out the links down in the description below. So right off the bat, before we get into the graphics options, just to talk to the port quality a little bit, they have done a pretty good job here. I'd say I'd give it about an 8 or a 9 out of 10, honestly. There are some micro stutters and hitches here or there. Thankfully, it gets off to a good start, though. When you boot up the game for the first time, you will note that it is compiling shaders or building shaders down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and this takes about 2 minutes or so, I would say. It would have been nice if there was a progress bar, if I'm nitpicking about it. But it's there. It compiles the shaders at the very least. So you just kind of have to wait for that to finish and then be patient, and the game will load in. It takes a few minutes overall to get the whole thing done. It'll bring you right into the game menu so you can set up your graphics options, where we'll jump to here now. Taking a look in here, we don't have a ton of options. We do have some basic video options here like borderless, full screen, and windowed mode, which I don't want to change because it'll mess up my recording. And you can see I'm playing here at 4K, and we've also got high refresh rate support. I'm on a 144 Hz display, but conceivably if you're on a higher refresh rate, it'll support that as well. VSync on or off, and it does have HDR, which I do have currently disabled as I don't have it enabled in Windows because it messes with recordings. So that's just a me issue for recording. Motion blur by default was at 5 or 50, I should say, but I went ahead and lowered that all the way down right away because motion blur is a horrendous joke to PC gamers everywhere. Film grain also got rid of that because oddly enough, I don't like my games to look bad. Colorblind mode is available here if you want to go ahead and use that. And there is a dynamic resolution scaling option, which you can set with different percentages. Now, these are the best settings I ended up landing on, even though the game can run fairly well at native 4K with ray tracing and everything. I'll show you guys in a minute here. But for the majority, for all of my playing, actually, I was playing on quality. I'm not sure why it reset there. There we go, on DLSS quality setting, and as you can see here, the graphics are on custom as a result of messing around some of these, but the light quality is at ultra, shadows at ultra, reflections at ultra, volumetric resolution at ultra, and our lone ray tracing option is ambient occlusion, so that's the RTAO, and there's also SSAO, or you can turn off ambient occlusion entirely. In my experience, RTAO has about a 10 to 15 FPS impacted 4K for me. Again, you can figure out percentages there. We'll get into it in a moment when we're in game. And we've also got depth of field quality, which you can adjust to high or low. You cannot disable it entirely, which is a little bit of a sad face, honestly. And jumping into the audio, I do love that they have the ability to swap between different audio devices, meaning you can go from stereo to multi-channel to 3D audio. So whatever happens to work for your audio setup best, you can go ahead and utilize so that the game will do a mixing of the sound, for your setup. And with audio being a huge factor in Dead Space games traditionally, that's definitely something you're going to want to tweak accurately to whatever you happen to be using, whether it's headphones, monitor speakers, or 5.1 setup like I am using. And we've also got control options in here, so you can fully customize the keyboard and mouse layout if you need to. You can go ahead and customize, and you can change anything in here and adjust all of the controls to your heart's content. Everything by default was pretty okay to me. The only thing I changed was the locator. I changed that to middle mouse, although by default it was X. And I might switch that, honestly, because I might put the alternate fire on middle mouse. Just a matter of personal preference, but these are everything that you can go ahead and tweak in there if you want to. I didn't notice an FOV option, but that's fairly, par for the course with Dead Space games, as they're presented in a very specific way. So I didn't exactly expect one, although it does seem to be pulled back a little bit, the camera, compared to the original Dead Space game. So I do appreciate that a little bit, giving us a wider FOV. So as I said at the start, performance is pretty solid. There are some stutters and hitches here or there when it seems to be loading assets in when you're going into new areas. This is mostly going to happen if you're getting on or off an elevator, or if you're going through a door or coming in, like I said, coming into a new area. That's where most of the stutters and hitches happen to happen. So happen to happen. Can you even say that? Is that legal to say that? But overall, when you're actually running around and shooting bad guys and everything, the performance is very smooth. And I'm hoping that with just 1 or 2 patches, they can get the extra little micro stutters and hitches sorted out. It's certainly nowhere near as bad as Callisto Protocol was, or still is, with its release that, has been out for well over a month now, and they still haven't gotten that game completely fixed. But this is a solid PC port day one, and I like pretty much everything that I'm seeing here as far as the remake. I said this is one of my favorite franchises, so I was really hoping that they did right by it. And there's a lot of areas that I find extremely familiar walking through. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this area. But it's all sort of a little bit different. There's some extra, details and assets that weren't there previously and stuff, and some different, not all of the enemies come out of the same, jump scares locations and stuff like that. And there's a few new things that are scripted in here or there, faking you out, making you think something scary is about to happen, but it doesn't happen. And then other times where you don't think something scary is going to happen, something scary does happen. So it's the Dead Space, gameplay rhythm beat that we've, have seen before in older Dead Space games. And I, for one, am extremely ecstatic to have it back here in 2023 with a solid PC port. As you can see here in the game, the scaling is phenomenal on my 9900K, which I'm still using. As you can see, though, on Frostbite Engine, it's using about 50 to 60% per thread. Everything is scaling beautifully up those threads. We're not being limited to 1 or 2 cores or anything along those lines. VRAM is around 11 to 12 gigabytes or so, but it's actually only using like 7 gigabytes, but it's allocating more than that. And I'm getting around 120 FPS, and this is pretty standard, no matter where I am in the game, really. This is pretty much how it'll run. I don't want to go anywhere I haven't been yet, because we might get some enemies dropping in, so I just kind of wanted to walk around a little bit to give you guys a feel for it. As you can see, I kind of loaded into that area there, and got a little bit of a hitch, a little bit of a stutter there, but it recovers quickly. It's like I said, it's mostly when you're loading into new areas, and you can see I'm coming up to an area, so we're getting some spikes there again. But then, once you're through and everything and actually just walking around, everything is pretty smooth in the game world overall. So really not any major complaints there about the performance. The stuttering could be better, but overall it's very good. And this is with RTAO on DLSS at the quality setting, and I'm getting about 100 frames per second here. And some of these tram areas or near the Ishimura when you get off are some of the more taxing areas of the game. More often than not, you're going to be inside in tight hallways, and the performance will actually be maybe even better than what we're seeing in this area right here. So if we come down here, this is a fairly telling area of something you would actually see during gameplay and just running around. Yeah, getting very good frames, over 100 FPS, 120, 130 at times. Let's go ahead and drop it down real quick. We'll drop it down to native and show you guys what it's running like there with RTAO and everything. So this is TAA now. on the high setting, but we still got RTAO, so we're essentially running at just native 4K with all the graphics options to the max. And you can see our frame rate has already come down to below 70, and it takes a second for some of the options to usually kind of kick in. There you go. See, now it's jumped up to like 70. It's like it's loaded them in now. So now we're at native 4K with the ray tracing ambient occlusion. And even, 4K with the 4090, it's still powering through it. We got to drop down into the 50s, but again, that's that hitches and stutters that we see when sort of approaching and coming in and out of doorways. So it's pretty much to be expected, honestly. But still very, very playable. I could totally play this game at native res and not have an issue. And that's just something you're going to have to, play around with based on your configuration and all that. You could be running on a 2060. Obviously, you probably won't want to use ray tracing. And based on your resolution, you'll just have to mess around with the DLSS, which works phenomenally, though. I mean, it gives like a good 75% boost in performance, even running on the quality settings. So, yeah, like right here, this is pretty taxing, getting 72 FPS, 73. Just real quick, though, we can go ahead and just turn off the ray traced ambient occlusion. So we were getting like 75, 80 there. So we'll just go ahead and switch that off to SSAO. Go back in. Like I said, it takes like a moment for it to sort of refigure out like what graphics option it's using, and then you'll see the FPS climb. So now we went from 70 to about 80. So that's about 10 to 15% performance impact, I would say, for 4K. So that's going to scale, linearly to what resolution you're playing and what frame rate you're getting. If you're already getting 100 frames per second with ray tracing on at, like, say, 1440p, and you whack it off, you'll gain 10 to 15% from there, which might be more of a gain than what I got here because I'm already starting at a lower frame rate. So there you go, though. That's just with the RT off. Definitely a viable way to play the game. Probably the better option if you were strict about keeping it at native 4K. If you really were a stickler for playing it native and not using DLSS, then I would probably opt to switch off the ray tracing just to get the smoothest experience possible. But honestly, for me, it was all about just turn the RT on and the DLSS quality. It looks the best that it's going to look, and we're getting still a very good frame rate, and I can't notice any difference as far as the visual quality is concerned negatively because of the DLSS. The DLSS implementation here is fantastic, and it also has FSR if you're an AMD user and you need to utilize that, or if you're on an older NVIDIA card and struggling to run it, you could also utilize FSR 2.0, so that's something you can use here. But for me, DLSS on quality with the ray traced ambient occlusion was just the way to go, as I generally get over 100 frames constantly playing at that. And yeah, it still looks like native crispy 4K to me, honestly. And also in some areas where I don't need the power as much, I'll see the GPU utilization sort of drop down. But overall, a good quality PC port. Like I said, I give it a good 8 or a 9 out of 10. We've got some stutters, we've got some hitches here or there, but nothing game ruining. It's mostly when transitioning between areas. So as long as you're okay with that, I can totally give this game a pass. It's a little pricey. It is a little pricey, coming in at $70, but it is on EA Play Pro if you're a PC gamer, which is how I grabbed it. I didn't have an active membership, but I was like, I don't know. I've already played Dead Space like 4 times, but I'm totally going to finish this game. But I'm glad that I got the $15 EA Play Pro for the month just to try it out and benchmark it for you guys, and I'm sure I'm going to cane through it this weekend at nighttime in 4K HDR with my headphones on, and it's going to be glorious. Dead Space, back at it again. Only complaint other than the stuttering is, what the hell, why does Isaac Clarke have a face and a voice? Isaac Clarke is not supposed to have a face nor a voice. I know they gave him a face and a voice in Dead Space 2, but this is a Dead Space 1 remake. In Dead Space 1, Isaac Clarke did not have a face. A face is a myth. He does not have a face. Do not believe what you see here, folks. It's fake news. Isaac Clarke does not have a face, okay? Believe me. This guy, no face. Do you see a face? I don't see a face. There's no way he has a face. Believe me, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend. Looking forward to the playoffs. Also, catch me later on tonight. I should be streaming with Raider Ben playing some Call of Duty, and then we'll be doing the Just Win Baby podcast over on his YouTube channel. So be sure to check us out later on, and I will catch you guys next time for another video. Peace.